Okay, in this section we're going to talk about how to brew SCOBY snacks. You're going to say, well wait, aren't you just brewing tea with sugar in it? Yeah. But at Kombucha Labs we call them SCOBY snacks because they are the perfect food to feed your SCOBY in order for your SCOBY to continue feeding you with incredible kombucha. The basic ingredients for SCOBY snacks are filtered water, organic tea, and organic sugar. It's really all you need. The water itself needs to be filtered. We can either use a Brita filter or a pure filter. If you have an under sink filter that's a little bit more elaborate, that's already built into your kitchen system, then that's fantastic. I like to go to the grocery store and use the vending machine because they use reverse osmosis plus 2 stages of charcoal filters and a couple other processes that I'm not fully familiar with, but I have come to the decision that that's the best way to minimize any contamination possibility in the water. And that's important. Anything that we're doing relative to the SCOBY, we have to remember we're feeding a living creature. So even when it comes all the way down to the water, using the purest water you can afford to use for your SCOBY snacks is always going to be the best decision. Now, when it comes to the organic teas, I've got 2 varieties here. One is just a very simple organic green tea in a little bit of a generic package from my local health food store. And this stuff is $3.99 for 80 bags. And there are other reasons that I like it. I'll show you the individual bags. Unlike some teas, this particular brand comes in bags that don't have any strings or any staples associated with them whatsoever. I really like that. I don't want putting any metal anywhere near my brew, so I've become a huge fan of these generic organic green tea bags. Then we've got a little bit of fancy tea. I like to flavor my brew. I don't use 100% flavored tea in any of my batches, but I do use maybe about 2 of the flavored green tea bags to 3 of the non-flavored green tea bags in a small 1-gallon batch. The bigger I brew, the lower the ratio of the flavored tea to regular green tea. I just don't like overpowering my kombucha with too much flavor. So what we're going to try today is golden mango green tea mixed with that regular organic green tea. Now, these tea bags are sort of middle ground between your standard tea bags and those completely string-free tea bags. You can see that there is a string attached here, but I want you to notice that there's no staple anywhere on the tea bag. Fantastic. I endorse their business practices because they're obviously sensitive to people who like to brew tea without contaminants. Then we get to the sugar. It's always best to use an organic sugar. There are a couple different ways that organic sugar is made. I think either of them are fine. There's the evaporated cane juice, and then there's regular organic cane sugar. Go organic, whichever way is easiest for you to do. It's not that much more expensive. This was $4.99 for the 4-pound package. Compare that to whatever you're normally buying, and I think you'll probably make a shift to organic sugar for all the uses that you have for it in your life. So we're going to use 1 gallon of water, a total of 5 tea bags, and 1 cup of sugar in order to brew a 1-gallon batch of SCOBY snacks. And that's going to be appropriate if you're using a 1-gallon jar to brew your kombucha in. You'll have a little bit left over after you feed your SCOBY, because you're always going to be leaving that starter fluid that we talk about in some of the other sections. So without further ado, let's boil some water. The only other thing I want to mention before we take a quick break and then run back here when the water's already boiling is the stock pot. Now, I use stainless steel stock pot. It's very important to use stainless steel and not use aluminum or other metals that may be considered reactive. So this is a standard stock pot. The nice thing I like about this is it does have the little markings at each gallon So depending on the size of your brew, it's really easy to know you're putting exactly the right amount of water in relative to your tea bags. So the very first thing we're going to do, put the water in there and turn it on high. Alright, stay right where you are. I'll come back when that's boiling. Okay, we've achieved rolling boil, which is exactly what we were after. And the next step is going to be to add 1 cup of organic sugar. Now, we want to have our wooden spoon in hand. I use wood because it's one of the least reactive substances available for spoons and such. Never use aluminum, never use anything plastic. If you have a stainless steel spoon, that'll work just fine. But I really like working with wood, so I use a wooden spoon. Let's add this sugar. The reason that we want to have this ready right away is because we don't want any of our sugar to caramelize at the bottom of the stock pot, especially if you're doing a small batch in a large stock pot. Then you're going to want to stir as soon as you pour this sugar in. So let's add the sugar. And we're stirring right away, as you can see. Again, just to make sure this all dissolves. SCOBY can't digest caramelized sugar, but it can digest dissolved sugar. I usually like to stir about 7 times in each direction, just to make sure we're getting everything dissolved perfectly. Alright, once that's in, it's time to add the tea. Now, as I mentioned before, I really like this tea here because there's no staples and no strings attached. That we can just drop right in. Now, the one thing I do like about strings is that you can keep all your tea bags together if you just go ahead and tie the strings together. So I always do that with anything that's got strings. And there's another advantage to this as well, because not only do they stay together once they're tied, but you can dispense with the ink-laden labels. Again, always trying to keep anything that might contaminate your tea completely away from the SCOBY snacks. Alright, so now we're brewing tea. What we're going to do is turn our heat down from high. I put it right in between the 2 and the 3 on my range. Basically a simmer, okay? And I like to simmer closed, so I lose the least amount to steam, that sort of thing. And most of the brew stays right in there with it. I do leave a little vent open just so that we can release, a little bit of the heat, and so that once it is fully steeped, then it's not going to take quite as long to cool. We're done here for now. What we do is we set, I use a digital timer, just go 2 hours. Start, come back when it beeps at me, and then we'll be ready to take it off the heat and let it cool overnight.